But this year we assume that the PLA force will enter deep into probably into the Taipei city. So we probably need to practice some kind of urban warfare against the potentially invading foe. And also, for instance, we use so-called all kinds of anti-air missiles, just like what Ukraine force did.
In this time, I will be thinking the submarine.
U.S. should send more kind of a military person to Taiwan in small groups and to teach us how to do it in the real combat condition.
Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus Point. I'm Yin Khvat. This week, Taiwan's air, land and sea forces are drilling for a Chinese invasion in the military's biggest live-fire drills of the year. Can lessons from Ukraine help prepare Taiwan for a Chinese invasion? Today, I'm joined by Dr. Ying-yu Lin of Tamkang University, Assistant Professor of Institute of Strategic and International Affairs, and Arthur Ding, National Chengchi University, Emeritus Professor of Graduate Institute of Asian Studies. Our political editor, Hangguang, also speaks with Rick Fisher of US security think tank International Assessment and Strategy Center in Virginia. So first off, Arthur Ding. President Tsaiingwen will observe the Hangguang military exercises from a naval ship.
Yes.
And this will be for the first time. How significant does this make the 38th Hangguang exercises? Is this the largest that we have seen to date?
So if Russia can do that, then will China launch the similar operation against Taiwan or not? That's why worldwide is watching, and a lot of speculation, to set a time frame when and how China will invade Taiwan, so on and so forth. So Taiwan has to be prepared for all kinds of scenarios. So that's why I would say this exercise is very significant in this kind of context.
Dr. Lin, all eyes on Taiwan. Are these the largest Hangguang exercises to date?
I think that in this time, the Hangguang exercise, maybe in the tactical that view, maybe we will be learning something from the Ukraine war, because that is, I will think that in this time, Ukraine war is already will be changed something, especially about the military affair. But in the challenged view, Hangguang exercise, we still follow some scenario in Taiwan, especially the Taiwan just is an island, and the Ukraine is a big land.
Arthur Ding, do you agree with Dr. Lin there that there are huge differences between Taiwan and Ukraine? Do you believe it is valuable to draw parallels or not so valuable?
Well, I kind of agree with Ying-yu's viewpoint that Taiwan is different from Ukraine. Taiwan is an island. Ukraine has a land border with so many countries in Western Europe. So because the geography is different, so the way of running operating this kind of military invasion will be different, and the waging so-called defense will be different. So the similarity and the parallel between Taiwan and the Ukraine, but there's some difference between Taiwan and Ukraine.
So the government has, Arthur Ding, the government has said that Ukraine will shape this year's Hangguang exercises. Can you tell us practically how that is?
The basic idea is a symmetric operation. PLA is a larger force. Taiwan is a small actors with a much smaller size of force.
And so for our viewers, when we say asymmetric, we mean this idea of Taiwan being a porcupine, being hard to invade. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can say that in that way, yeah. And this is some kind of a difference between this year's Hangguang and the previous years. For instance, we mobilized reserve force and joined the exercise. Previously, we didn't do it. And also previously, our exercise concluded at the beach head. We assume we can eliminate the invading force at the beachhead.
Right, without them entering Taiwan.
Yes, but this year we assume that the PLA force will enter deep into probably into the Taipei city. So we probably need to practice some kind of urban warfare against the potentially invading foe. And also, for instance, we use so-called all kind of anti-air missiles, just like what Ukraine force did in previous months against invading jet fighters, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of difference between this year's exercise and the previous one.
Dr. Lin, would you agree with that? Where else does this year's differ from last year's?
I think it's, of course, there will be some different, but we have to think. Sometimes if the Taiwan's ROC army, we will be using the army. That is mean PLA, they already landing. They already go into on the Taiwan land. But if they want to landing, the first thing they have to control the air and the sea. So sometimes in the Taiwan's view, maybe we will be more focused on the with the artillery, our tank, the army, how to the moving, because it will be the picture to let the people can watch. But the more important thing is the jet fighter or the battle, our destroyer, especially our submarine. If today we can to keep the sea or the air to more security, the PLA, they will be not landing, especially after the Ukraine war. American and NATO, they will not direct to go into the Ukraine to support the Ukraine army. They only to using the election warning or like the E3 or the RC-135, that kind of the plan, the flying craft, direct to the transfer the election information or the location to talking to Ukraine's army to hit here, where is the target, where is Russia's army.
So you, sorry, to summarize, you believe that the US, like in Ukraine, will not put boots on the ground, that they would simply use their intelligence to support Taiwan.
They will be direct to using the election to support Taiwan. So that is a new military affair. So that is why the PLA recently, they will want to block. They will be using their jet fighter or the ship, try to block Taiwan.
Arthur Ding, you talked about moving scenarios from the beachfront to cities, and this year Taipei port is the focus of a scenario. Taipei port is at the mouth of the Danshui River. It's important because of the access it provides to Taipei, the capital. What so-called anti-decapitation techniques will Taiwan's military be using?
I guess this involves the assumption, what kind of a decapitation operation the Chinese military will launch. For instance, will they send a special force, a different group of special force, to, for instance, to our presidential office or to commanding center, so on and so forth. So those are the major, I would say, item we really need to practice. In addition to the Taipei port issue, because it depends on your assumption. But I guess the Chinese, they learn something from the Ukraine, because Zelensky frequently can speak to the outside world in order to mobilize their morale, to boost their morale. So I guess probably the Chinese military think that if they can launch decapitation operation and wipe out our top leaders, then we will, our leadership will be crushed.
Right.
Then so I think this is
so effectively, if Russia had managed to basically take out Kyiv, then there wouldn't be, as you said, all of this support and coordination that's being controlled from Kyiv.
So one deficiency for Russia's operation in Ukraine is that they allowed this command and control system remain to work very somewhat effectively, I would say. So this is why maybe from Chinese military perspective, how to eliminate the annihilate the so-called our command and control system, and which center on our top leadership.
Dr. Lin, so if we draw that parallel, what the Ukrainians did in Ukraine to protect Kyiv, they were very successful. Can Taiwan learn from that and stop this so-called decapitation?
I think Taiwan, of course, we can to learning something, but I will want to point out, like to follow the Dr. Ding saying about that. PLA, they will not totally to the using like Russia's style to attack that. For example, like before we say Taipei, Taipei port, maybe the PLA they will be jump over there because they will be direct to using like the helicopter direct to flying, direct going to the Taipei city. So sometimes maybe if we want to the fighting in the city, we have to know where is our bullets, where is our gun in the city, the defense. So sometimes, especially from the PLA view, they don't need to control like the Taoyuan airport. They don't need to control that because they already have the 075. That is amphibious assessed ship. That can direct to let maybe not only the Marine Corps, but now in this time, especially attack Taiwan, they don't need to from the land, from the sea to the land. They can direct from the air. So this part still, I in my view, I still think maybe we need to learning some things after from the Ukraine war, but we still thinking follow the PLA, what will be changed, especially after 2017, the PLA, they already have a military reform.
So in your opinion, the anti-ship missiles are a lot more important strategically for Taiwan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anti-ship, the missile. And not only is the anti-ship, especially like the submarine, because if we can have the more submarines, that is mean PLA Navy, they need to share his ship to finding our submarine, because that is like our submarine is still in the sea, in the deep sea, they will be worried about our submarine, so they will not to landing.
Okay, let's go now to arms sales. The US's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan defended the US change in policy on arms sales to Taiwan at the Aspen Security Forum in Colorado. The Biden administration wants to move away from selling Taiwan things like tanks, fighter jets, anti-ship missiles, to boost what it says is Taiwan's asymmetrical capability. Critics like Rick Fisher, director of the International Assessment and Strategy Center, say the changes reduce the deterrence on China. Let's take a look.
Rick is a longtime senior military analyst at the International Assessment and Strategy Center. What do you believe would be the best strategy for deterring a Chinese military invasion on Taiwan?
1,000-kilometer range ballistic missiles. People's Liberation Army understands missiles. They also have thousands of them. And were Taiwan to arm itself with a very large arsenal of long-range ballistic missiles, that would definitely get the attention of the People's Liberation Army, and they would stay away for quite some time. Now, absent Taiwan making those missiles or the United States selling those missiles to Taiwan, which it's perfectly capable of doing, then the Taiwan default strategy, if you will, of preparing for distant as well as near, close in counter-invasion operations, it remains the valid strategy. Taiwan has to have the capability to attack the thousands of barges that are going to be pouring out of the Yangtze River, carrying all the troops and tanks to invade Taiwan. But Taiwan, of course, also has to have the ability to mine approaches to logical invasion locations, and to make it very difficult for the People's Liberation Army to actually disembark its troops and armor on Taiwan.
In terms of making it difficult, there have been quite a series of recent arms sales from the US. And there's also been some criticism that some of the equipment has been too restrictive. What are your thoughts on this, and what items, as you mentioned, ballistic missiles, would best prepare Taiwan in a full-scale attack from the PLA?
Well, the Biden administration has apparently, there's been no announcement to this effect, but it has apparently decided to focus on selling Taiwan just the tools necessary to defeat an invasion at the shore close into Taiwan. It is not going to sell Taiwan weapons like new MH-60 anti-submarine warfare helicopters, because they do not help to defend Taiwan at the beach. If this was truly the strategy and goal of the Biden administration in convincing Taiwan to prepare for this kind of war, then we would be approaching the defense of Taiwan like we're approaching the defense of Ukraine, namely dumping mountains of weapons on Taiwan so that Taiwan can put them in storage and impress the PLA that if they invade, it's going to be a very difficult battle that they could very well lose, so they better not even consider trying. Unfortunately, that's not what the Biden administration is doing. There are many who predict that China could attack Taiwan in the next 2 to 5 years. And this is valid. These are valid assessments. And because of that, especially, the United States should be shipping mountains of weapons to Taiwan. Take the next 100 years to pay for them. Taiwan needs these weapons now because we simply can't allow China to decide that it can win the war. Once it decides it can win the war, it is going to start the war.
There have been a lot of talks about how this amphibious attack from China would take massive people, equipment, and would be the largest in the history of the world. Taiwan has been working with the US on indigenous submarines, applying US technology, with 8 rolling out next year. How effective do you think that will play in an allied effort to ward off China should a sea attack take place?
Well, it's not just by the sea, but it's also by air. China has the potential. If Taiwan didn't fight back, it's my estimation that the PLA could put 5 to 8 million people on Taiwan within a month. These would be troops and occupation forces. And of course, this would be the end of freedom on Taiwan, the beginning of Taiwan as a major military base for Chinese Communist Party ambitions for global hegemony. But how do we combat this kind of air and maritime invasion? Well, I think it's important right now for the United States and Europe to stop selling airlines to China. First of all, China has about 3,000 Boeing and Airbus airliners, and they will all be part of the invasion force if the PLA is able to capture airfields. We should be prepared to decertify all of these airliners so that China's ability to conduct global commerce by air is cut off. We need to be ready to do that immediately. Then secondly, yes, Taiwan requires many more anti-ship missiles, ground-based anti-ship missiles. The Trump administration agreed to sell Taiwan 400 Harpoon missiles. The United States should deliver these immediately. We can if we want to, but we should deliver them immediately, along with 1,000 ATACMS, or soon to be put into production PRSM, short to medium range ballistic missiles.
Going back to ballistic missiles, if what you mentioned were the trend of the Biden administration, in what ways do you think we can influence that to make sure that the administration is on track on providing Taiwan with the defense capabilities to effectively deter this?
Well, historically, the government of Taiwan, both Kuomintang and Democratic Progressive Party governments, have been very adept, capable of making their desires known in Washington, to put it plainly. It's simply a matter of the government of Taiwan deciding that it wants these ballistic missiles and that it seeks them. There would be endless sympathy in the U.S. Congress for such a request. In very short order, I believe that the administration could be convinced, if not by Taiwan government officials, then especially by a bipartisan appeal from the Congress, that these missiles should be sold to Taiwan. Transferred, pay later. Let's make this let's make such a sale as rapidly as we can.
That was Rick Fisher, Director of the International Assessment and Strategy Center, talking to Rath Wang. Arthur Ding, Fisher believes the core to defending Taiwan is actually long-range ballistic missiles. And Taiwan, we are mass producing the Yunfeng missile. It's shrouded in some secrecy, but we believe that it is a supersonic missile. It could be capable of hitting Beijing. Do you agree with Fisher that long-range ballistic missiles could hold the key to stop China thinking that it can invade? And does the Yunfeng, should it make China think twice?
Well, I guess the rationale behind for developing this kind of somewhat longer range surface-to-surface missile, I would say there are two reasons. The first one has been mentioned by Rick, because if Beijing has to think twice before they launch, the military operation, think twice about this so-called security and the safety of Beijing and other metropolitan cities. But second, probably is also, I would say, also important that if we have somewhat the precision, longer range missile able to hit those military target and military assets in China, then they will delay or slow down Chinese military operation. I think the Taiwan's defense plan actually is, I would say, they're kind of pragmatic and realistic. I talked with some of our retired top-ranked military officials. They know this kind of asymmetric situation between Chinese military and the Taiwanese military, and they know the Chinese military has been modernized so fast in the past 2 or 3 decades. So the most important for their plan is that if we can slow down or delay their military operations, then it will be sufficient time for Taiwan to survive and to our defense. Also, equally important to hit the so-called military target and military assets, so that the Chinese military operation will be slowed down or even delayed.
Mm. And so how do you interpret the Biden administration's policy in that case?
I would say, to some extent, Biden's military, the policy somewhat, I would say, has its own merit, I would say, because this involves different assumptions. The Biden administration assumes that if China launches military operation, they will concentrate tremendous size of force and in very short time to overwhelm Taiwan's military assets. So in that kind of a circumstance, what Taiwan needs we can survive, and how can we sustain our survivability, so on and so forth. So it's a different assumption. But from Taiwan's perception that, probably our those so-called fancy weapons like F-16 will be eliminated. but we still need to somewhat longer range missile able to hit back to Chinese military targets and assets. So the military operation will be slowed down and delayed. So the Biden administration's, I would say, the assumption have its merit, but also have its, from my own perspective, have its deficiency.
Dr. Lin, you heard there that Rick Fisher is also encouraging Taiwan to decide that it wants ballistic missiles and to ask for them from the US. Is there a disagreement here between the two strategies, Taiwan's and America's? And what do you think about adopting this more assertive approach?
I think the first, I think the long-range missile, okay, that is, I was saying that is necessary capability, but not the top one, not the number one, not the first we need to get to set up. Because, okay, all those, we will be have the missile, like the Yunfeng, but how many? How many missiles can we to destroy Beijing? Maybe 100 or 200, but that is because the missile is also expensive. Taiwan maybe we have jet fighter, missile, submarine. It will be also our defense budget. So which will be the first? That is more important thing. So maybe like the Richard Fisher saying, okay, we need to like this, but it will be still to the defense Taiwan. But sometimes it's not only in the wartime. Still have the peacetime, especially in this time, PLA or mainland China, they will be using the green zone. Green zone is in the green zone. That's exercise or the operations.
So you believe, rather than priority on long-range missiles, what kind of weapon do you think we should prioritize?
In this time, I will be thinking the submarine.
Submarines.
Will be the first weapon we need to keep. Missile is cannot using in the gray zone. Gray zone, that is mean their PLA, their jet fighter will be flying near our the ADIZ or the ship. Maybe it's not the warship. They will be using the Coast Guard. Coast Guard's ship or the militia ship will be near the ship or surround or try to block like the Dongsha Island. But in that time, we cannot to launch our missile to direct to hit them. We still need maybe the Coast Guard, maybe the destroyer, maybe the other kind of the ship. Our Navy should be go out because the Navy is the diplomacy.
Okay. Dr. Ding, do you agree that we need submarines more than anything, and it's to combat this gray zone warfare?
Yeah, as my own comment is that the Biden administration's assumption has its merit, but also have its own deficiency, as I said. You mentioned about the so-called China's gray zone strategy. This is before the so-called total war, the launch the military against Taiwan. But before China launched the total war against Taiwan, China may test Taiwan from different perspectives, different aspects. For instance, in the past 2 years, they sent by daily basis send the jet fighter to Taiwan's ADIZ, southwest of the ADIZ area. So we have to have our F-16 and other jet fighters to scramble to see what Chinese military jet fighter is doing. So this is also part of China's gray zone area, a gray zone strategy, coercively every day and on the daily basis, incrementally
to wear down and to weaken.
To weaken our defense. So that's why, in addition to so-called the longer range missile, we probably also to a certain amount what the Biden administration called the fancy weapon, for instance, F-16 or other more advanced jet fighters, because we cannot send the so-called the old type of the jet fighter to the ADIZ area. So those are the different, I would say, different assumption over how China will launch the so-called the military operation against Taiwan. As I said, before the all-out war, then China might test Taiwan on daily basis from different perspectives, different aspects.
So just to sum up, you do believe that there is a difference, a disagreement in strategies between Taiwan and the US?
Yeah, because this involves the assumption, yeah.
Different assumptions. So looking more broadly now, Dr. Lin, Taiwan experts believe that China has the capability to launch a surprise attack on Taiwan. Now, of course, this is different to Russia, where we actually saw the buildup of tens of thousands of troops over several months. Do you agree with these Taiwan experts? Has China got this capability?
I think the PLA maybe they will be try to assess or the surprise, try to a very quick time to control the Taiwan. So they will be say 首战即决战, the first fight, first strike. It will be end. It will be like the end game. They will be try to doing that. But sometimes I still think the PLA will be not ready, because in the military reform, after the Iraq War, they will be learning, okay, joint operation. So they have to follow the American. So the first thing is theory. And then step two, they will be let the PLA, the weapon can be more information. So they will try to focus on their teach knowledge. And step three is in the Xi Jinping. They will be doing the military reform to let their organization can be followed, can will be the using like to finding to fix joint operation. But the final is the human capital. Why the PLA, the Xi Jinping say the 2035, the PLA will be more like the modernization, can be ready to fight. Because from the 2017, PLA military academy just reformed. From 2017 to 2035, this almost 18 or 19 years. That is mean that the freshman, when he go into the military academy, will be like the lieutenant colonel or like the colonel. That is a male command and staff. That's the real can the commander will become to know the joint operations commander. So until that time, PLA will be already together to know how to fighting, and especially in joint operations, that's part. So in my view, in this time, PLA will not ready, and they will be not. Maybe there the military technology will be try to catch up American, but their thinking, especially the strategy, the view, is not yet. Especially in their organization, too many departments. Maybe they will try to. They will be joint operations, but not yet.
Dr. Ding, do you agree that we are relatively safe until China's modernized its military in possibly the year 2035?
Yeah, at this stage, we are still somewhat relative, because, as you said, that yeah, China has tried to build up. Particularly, China tried to develop some kind of surprise attack capability. There's no doubt China is working in that kind of direction. For instance, in all the 13 so-called group armies, each group army have one so-called special operation brigade. But the question is that how can you have those special operation brigade along with a Marine Corps and other special operation units can jointly work to launch joint operation to target a different direction in Taiwan, and in very quick time to control Taiwan. It still remains a very tough job and daunting task for them.
Because the PLA doesn't actually have war experience, does it? It doesn't have much.
Since 1979, the Chinese military did not have war experience for more than almost 5 decades. Yeah.
And Arthur Ding, if I can ask you, taking a more regional look, Mark Milley, the US's top general, is currently in Asia. He's meeting with the heads of military across the region. RIMPAC, as Dr. Lin mentioned, the Rim of the Pacific exercises is wrapping up, and that was where 26 nations actually, increase their interoperability, which means that they can work together better, fight together better. Taiwan's conducting its military exercises now, but how effective do you think that this can be, given that we don't have the ability to have joint military exercises with either the US or Japan, Dr. Lin?
I think the Taiwan, of course, the RIMPAC is a very important joint exercise, especially in American, they will be using in RIMPAC exercise to showing the new strategy, new scenario, new the military tactical. So in this time, the Taiwans, we have to learning and watching the RIMPAC, what they were doing, what the American, what they were doing, and we have to improve our Hangguang exercise. So we can to look in this time, Hangguang will be after RIMPAC. And sometimes, but the Taiwan, if we want to join the RIMPAC, I still think that's still a little far, because American, there will be a lot of the thinking, especially it's not only the DOD the Pentagon can control about that. It's still things about an international relation about in that. But I would be think Taiwan, the only one the chance maybe is to join in the war game. In the RIMPAC, before the RIMPAC, they will have the war gaming. In the war gaming, we can to know what scenario, because we need to think and watching what kind of they want to do and improve our Hangguang. Or the only one way is because we also need to watching the Coast Guard. Taiwan, the Coast Guard, we have the MOU will be cooperation with U.S. Coast Guard, and we in this time we also have the joint exercise. So sometimes maybe Taiwan Navy, ROC Navy cannot direct cooperation with American or other country, but the Coast Guard, some people say that is the second Navy. We can using the Coast Guard to become a bridge or become a channel, using that to connect with other countries.
That's right, because our Coast Guard corvettes do actually have the capability of anti-ship missiles too. Is that correct? And they will actually be participating for the first time in Hangguang this year.
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Ding, could I ask you then, do you see this as a huge part of the jigsaw that's missing, that Taiwan has its own military exercises, but it doesn't actually have joint exercises with the US or Japan?
Yeah, it's quite an unfortunate development because our so-called diplomatic isolation. But there's certain way to make it up, I would say. For instance, we all know that the US sent military groups to Taiwan to help train our, the side by side to train our soldiers how in the real so-called combat, how to do it, so on and so forth. So there's a certain way to make it up, although we really cannot participate in so-called international military exercise. But I think if possible, U.S. should send more kind of a military person to Taiwan in small groups and to teach us how to do it in the real combat condition. So I would say this probably is more important. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much to my guests for discussing this year's Hangguang exercises, Dr. Lin Ying-yu and also Dr. Arthur Ding. Thank you. For more Point shows, please download the Taiwan Plus app. Stay safe and see you next time.